50-foot paper right-of-way that's undeveloped. Cemetery Street between 716 North Granville Street and 703 North Granville Street, extended east approximately 110 feet. And I'll call on Anne Marie to explain that if she will, please.
I will, Mayor, thank you. So the council is aware of two encroachments that exist on 716 North Granville Street, and that property supports a single-family residence. And years ago, a small portion of the structure was built beyond the property line into the town's property, and then a driveway pad was also constructed. And it hasn't bothered anybody in the world. Public Works, it's an unimproved paper street and we don't use it, but the house is for sale and it's under contract, and it was discovered during the due diligence. And the best way to remedy this encroachment is, since we don't need the property, is for you all to go through the process of ordering the street closed, and that process then would allow for half of the property to be deeded to the two adjoining property owners. And so half would go to the owners of 716, I think it's 25 feet, would go to 716 North Broad, and then the remaining 25 feet would be deeded to our friends at Chowon County. That's the Ag Center property. So we've done all the advertising, we've done all the notice, and we advertised for a public hearing this evening, and anybody who has any questions or concerns is invited to speak. Don't see anybody here to speak. Didn't expect anybody to speak, but you still have to go through the process of conducting the public hearing, and then when you close the public hearing, the council can consider adopting the resolution to formally order the closing of that portion of Cemetery Street.
Okay. All right, since we don't have anybody here to talk about it, we'll close the public hearing. And now it's up to us as the council to talk about it. Anybody have any questions and or comments about the closing of the paper street?
Mayor, I just have a comment. I appreciate town staff and everybody identifying all these things that are out there, and it seems as though we're kind of putting a priority on cleaning these things up. We've had more of these things in the last 3 or 4 months than I recall having recently, and it's just a cleanup function.
Right.
I think it's all in favor of it.
I just had a question there. Do you think there are more ghost streets around town that we're not aware of?
Councilman Bond did ask that question, and we started working on a list for you, and we'll get that together, but there are quite a few. But hopefully they don't have encroachments on them.
Did the county have any problem with this at all? I mean, that's really expands the parking lot a little bit, doesn't it?
It does. I didn't get any feedback, negative or positive, just
Okay.
so noted. And as a matter of fact, the county manager called me the other day and asked me about closing, what is the process to close a portion of Woodard Avenue and East Hick Street. That will have to be done for the new high school. So I reminded him of the process that we were going through to give them 25 feet from Old Cemetery Street.
I wouldn't think they would complain. We'd
Yeah.
give them 25.
I was thinking, well, we could trade something for it, you know?
Yeah.
Good luck with that. Okay. So at this time, if there are no further discussions, I will entertain a motion to close that street.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the next thing is we have a budget amendment for the water and sewer fund and inflow and infiltration of the capital project ordinance, and I'll call on Ms. Knighton again to discuss that with us.
Yes, Mayor. In the agenda review report, we noted that with enthusiasm that we're getting to the point where we can close out the $1.4 million I&I project. And with that also is included a Golden Leaf grant. And we had received, and were anticipating to receive about a $43,000 change order for additional work that was identified while the project was in process. And that's not unusual. I guess the unusual part is that the change order, that there weren't more change orders when you were dealing with $1.4 million worth of underground sewer work. So Virginia has prepared the budget amendment. There's not money available in the loan proceeds to pay for that, so we're recommending appropriating funds from Water and Sewer Reserve that would then go into the special project ordinance. And I kind of explained about trying to close out the Golden Leaf grant, and I've requested that Golden Leaf allow us to amend the scope of their work so that we can use this change order to close out Golden Leaf. And I think that's going to work out, so I'll keep you posted on that.
Okay, any discussion on that? Any questions of Anne Marie? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept this amendment.
So moved, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, now we'll move into our committee meetings, and the first is Public Works Committee, and that's chaired by Councilman Miller.
Mayor, we've got 4 items of business to discuss tonight. The first being a presentation, water system asset inventory and assessment report. I just want to remind everyone that back in 2020, the town received a $150,000 grant from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality to conduct a comprehensive asset inventory and assessment of the water system. As you remember, the town contracted Stroud Engineering to conduct this inventory and assessment report. This evening we have with us tonight David Tootin from Stroud Engineering to give us a summary of that project. David, are you with us? David?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. You're on cue right now.
All right. I'm going to try to share my screen so I can get the PowerPoint up. That didn't work out real well. Y'all, what do you see on your end? Because all I see is,
We see the report.
okay, you do see the report. Well, so as you had said, my name is David Tootin. I'm from Stroud Engineering, and I was working with Corey on the water system asset inventory assessment grant project for the town of Edenton. I'm going to give you a quick background of that particular project. The town of Edenton had applied for a grant in the fall of 2018, and the state had awarded the water asset inventory project to Edenton the following year. Edenton was awarded $150,000, which 5% of that was a required match in kind, which between Corey's time on this project and all the individuals that he allowed in the field with our crews to do the location work, you more than met that 5% match. After speaking with Corey on this particular project, figuring out the best way to utilize the money, it was determined that they didn't have a very good inventory of all the water meters that the town had. So we decided to move forward with the location of all the water meters and determining the feature assets that Corey and the town could utilize from those locations. So as you can see on the slide, we determined if it was a residential or irrigation or commercial style meter. We determined the condition based off of either the site or the experience of Corey and his employees. We determined the lid type, whether it was metal, plastic, if it was broken, or if it was even missing. We also had to determine the location of those water meters, whether they were inside of a driveway in concrete or if it was in the middle of the lot. And then along the way, Corey had decided that there was a few hydrant valves missing, hydrants. So he had a database currently already in place, so we were trying to fill it out to complete it so he would have all the information he needs for the future. So we went ahead and added all the hydrant valves and hydrants that were not currently available. And then at the end, we thought it was best, especially with Corey, trying to merge this database in with the billing system. So as of right now, all the assets that were located, we have a customer number or an account number associated with it so it can automatically be linked to one of the accounts in the billing system. The next few slides are just going to be an idea of what was located in the service area for the town of Edenton. As you can see in this slide, that there was 2,272 meters located. The red being commercial, the green being residential, and it's really hard with as many water meters that were located. There's some irrigation scattered throughout the system also. On the next slide here, we're showing how many of the hydrant valves that we had to locate are either verified in the field. There was 155 of them scattered throughout the town, with 90 that was already currently in place in the database. Along with those hydrant valves, we had to look for any hydrants or locate hydrants Corey had told us were missing from the current database. So most of the time, this is just going to be new commercial, new residential development in the area, or if there was a hydrant that needed to be located or installed for insurance purposes. So at the end of all the location and all the work, working with Corey, what some of the uses of the information was going to be used for. I believe Corey is going to elaborate more on the metering infrastructure project that you're going to have coming up. But with this data located, actually seeing where all your meters were, we were able to determine what lids needed to be replaced for that project. The location, whether it was going to be an issue as far as signal strength. If it was in the driveway, if there was going to be a vehicle over, if there was going to be something obstructing the signal. And then also one of the big things was with the age of those meters and the condition of those meters, Corey's able to look and determine which ones need to be replaced and if it's in certain areas of the town. So he's able to sort through all this information and easily determine what areas need to be concentrated more as far as replacing those meters. And as far as attaching these meters to an account, especially in your billing system, I think it's a huge deal as far as knowing exactly who all this goes to, because you don't want to duplicate a bunch of information. Because if you start doing that, you start overwriting, or either you just get multiple accounts, and one of them's incorrect and one's going to be correct, and it's just hard to run that stuff down. So the way that Corey wanted to have this set up, I think was very smart, and it's going to be very beneficial for you in the future. Making a short and sweet presentation. Is there any questions for this particular project?
I don't hear any, Dave.
I asked David earlier, what were other towns our size, what were kind of the end product for communities that have received this funding? And David, can you share with the council what you shared with me?
Well, as far as the type of work that was done here, most of the time, a lot of municipalities get the locations, and they just put it in a database, and look at it as needed. But with the town of Edenton moving forward with trying to intertwine all of the collective information in with the billing system, that just makes it one cohesive unit, in my opinion. It's just the only thing that could be potentially included in the future is possibly line work, but I think that Corey has a pretty good idea of what he has in the field right now. Most of the time, the water meter is the most important aspect of it as far as billing. Getting an idea exactly what you have on the ring.
So I was pleased to know that the integration of the data in the field being integrated to the management system that Public Works has to manage the assets, but then it's also integrated with the billing system. And it sounded like when David and I were talking earlier today that was not something that a lot of towns our size have been able to accomplish, so I thought.
No, and you're correct, Anne Marie. Most people don't even think about trying to incorporate it to the billing system. And it just makes sense, honestly. And then, of course, Corey's got this loaded up to the cloud, so he has it available anytime he needs it, and his employees also. So he has this in multiple locations.
Is there a gap now between the meters and the billing system that results in less income? Does that play a factor, or do we know yet?
Well, I think with Corey, with us shifting meter reading from, in the past, the electric department was reading electric and water meters. And now with Corey's division reading the water meters, and then you'll hear about how we hope that to make that more efficient in the next presentation this evening. There won't be a gap. I mean, it'll all be tied together.
And if you want, I can go ahead and step up and try to transition from where we are now to provide some insight to some of the questions that may be regarding David's presentation. We can lead right into the next. And David's going to stay on with us because this is kind of a part 1A and a 1B. I mean, they're both really, really intertwined. So.
Right.
Before he does, then our committee just make a statement. Mayor, the Public Works Committee recommends that at our August 10th council meeting, the council go on record receiving and accepting David Tooten's report tonight. So just to make sure we look at that again at the August 10th. We go right into item number 2. Phase 1 automatic meter reading proposal. Mayor, we have our Public Works Director, Corey Gooden, here with us this evening, and he's going to present an overview of the town's proposal to transition to the automatic meter readings for water meters. So Corey, you want to go ahead now?
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council, Anne Marie, and other staff members. To end where David kind of stopped is Stroud & Son is also the same engineering firm that we have worked with for our Phase 1 and Phase 2 improvements for our water treatment facility. So when we look at what was collected versus what we visually see, we had new water plants. We had already identified which water system assets were going to be improved for the second part of our water treatment process. We had some preliminary data from the fire department for hydrant locations. You may say, well, why did you kind of step through what was remaining? Those are the few items that either we needed to final clean up with the hydrants, the hydrant valves, and then the big missing piece was the water meter data and at their physical locations. And you can see that we started with a lot of new dots and worked our way towards a lot of little missing pieces. And when I first began in 2017, we were on year 1 of 3 where we had already identified the water valve locations. And the big part of that was those guys come in and had identified and GIS'd all that. We knew the condition assessment of that. But the one piece that was missing is we're at an intersection, there's 5 water valves there. Which one's for the hydrant? We need to know specifically which one's for the hydrant versus which one's for the distribution system. We need to know what new hydrants were added in. And on the back side of all of this, you talk about the billing data that David, as well as us, worked on to try to integrate that. There's 3 points to that triangle. One being the physical location of those meters. The second being the actually reading software that's used now for either us or the electric department to read those meters. So that's one piece. And then the final piece, which is really where our gatekeeper is with our billing software. Each 3 had been independently managed, and the oversight was 3 different people. Now all 3 of those systems have been intertwined. Each of them stand alone on their own. You say, well, why is it important to identify the customer data and the location data when in 6 months it's someone else's house? That meter number or that tenant number or that account number never changes. The customer's name and contact information, all that may change, but we physically know which parcel, which home that goes to. And that was key to get all 3 of those. So, although short, there was a lot of data on the backside that isn't seen. It's really in the weeds that David and his team was able to help us work through. Well, why is all that important? So, we had back in 2008, 2009, the town had worked with the state before, because around every 10 years or so, this is something you look into to try to just see what the overall efficiency is and what you're producing at your plants versus what you're doing. And so the result of that study was that the water meters and the entire system that was tested was actually very favorable at that time. So now let's fast forward 10 years down the road. We actually started and kind of tabled this project and the selection process with the state back in 2017 or 18. The project was awarded a year or so later because of the water treatment plants. That's why we're just now in March of 2021 getting the final completed data set. And what we knew that we were going to face is that as we move forward from that initial look 10 years ago, is that things were going to start to reach the end of their useful life. And so that was the big thing here is we want to be able to go ahead and identify everything from our billing software as well as our meter locations and a condition, so we know where to start replacing these things. Well, the technology we're talking about from 2007 to 2008 versus where we are now has drastically improved. So one of the things we were able to gather just from this project alone is we have survey grade maps. We have GIS locations that are survey grade, as well as the asset condition reports for, and you can say, well, David told us a different number a while ago. It's because there's been 6 additional meters added since this project has changed. So whereas he had 2,272, we're already up to 2,278. These were identified. These guys came back with us after the project was done. We did the same data cleaning, the same data location. And we were able to identify residential, commercial, industrial, as well as landscaping meters. And these range anywhere from your typical residential 3/4 inch right on up to an 8 inch, which is typically for a fire line, fire system, or a larger single structure that may have multiple residents. A good example would be like cotton mill. The actual 8 inch feeds that entire building. We also were able to identify every flushing hydrant, or more commonly known as fire hydrants, and the specific valve locations. This has been crucial for us to know as we've started our TTHM flushing program, things of that nature. Guys specifically know now where to go, how to do that. Same thing for the meters. When you say, well, why is survey grade important? Because of the turnover that we see throughout our department, folks with more experience retiring, it's important to be able to pull up on the screen, and I wish I'd have put that in here. Google Maps, Street View, and there's a pin, and it's exactly on top of the meter box. You can literally see the shading difference in the grass. Why is that important? Well, landscaping, trees, someone forgets we hadn't been to that one in, a few months, just other than reading, only one person knows he's not here. Now the entire team knows where every hydrant valve, and every meter is at. Why is this important for us? What this condition assessment shown us is that a large majority of the water meters that we currently have in service they're beginning to approach the end of their useful life. So it's time for the town to reconsider some type of major change out of a larger amount of meters other than the 230 we've done in the 4 years I've been here. You can go to the next slide. We have reviewed all different types of options, whereas we have a more what's called a direct read now. It just makes sense to go ahead and skip a couple steps. There are some alternatives in between here where you're still driving by, you're still using older technology, things that just aren't there. And the thing that we've really decided to go with that we would like to recommend is we've Master Meter Allegro AMR system. This is an automated metering system. What this would include would be a base station that we would actually install on Twitty Avenue. Within the last 2 weeks, we had finalized this prop study, and what this shows is signal strength, and anywhere within the town that maybe additional hardware would be added to remotely read these. So Jessica or Virginia or myself could physically check that meter from the convenience of our desk to know if there's a leak, to know if there's an issue, talk directly with that customer, have an interface with them when there's billing questions that's directly for that one person. This project, we're looking at changing out anywhere from 800 to 850 meters. Of that, we're looking at about 785 residential meters or actual registers. And then we have a total of 62 larger meters. These are anything 1 inch and up that's town-wide. We chose to start this route because we feel like that we really can really stretch out the outermost edges of town. The intent of this project is to already have the established infrastructure to reach the entire town. And quite honestly, the areas that we're getting ready to talk about are going to be the simplest and quickest for us to get through. When we start getting into the heart of downtown or your north to south corridors, your Granville, your North Broad, your North and South Oakland, those residential areas are going to be more and more difficult just because we have more stormwater assets, we have more streets, curbs, sidewalks, things that are going to make it a little more difficult for something that we can manage in-house. At the bottom right, you'll see photos. The top left is more of your residential meter. This is the actual device that would go in place. To its right is what's known as an octave. This is a type of device that's specifically set up for larger flow applications, anything from a 1 inch right on up to probably a 14 inch, maybe even larger than that. But for us, we're looking anywhere from 1 inch meters up to an 8 inch. And you say, well, what's the register? Well, in the last 4 years, we have already replaced close to 230 meters. So how can we bridge that gap with a meter that's only 1 to 4 years old? Well, what the company also offers for us is that we can just simply replace the register. It is the same automatic metering register, just like some of the older ones are. We've identified the ones that we've replaced in the last 4 years, and we're simply going to change out those registers and still have that same 10-year warranty on that register and that same 20-year life expectancy on the body of that meter itself. Anything that's approaching the end of its useful life, you would see one of these two types of meters going in, depending on residential, commercial, industrial. You can go to the next slide. So how do we start this? So in addition to the data that David and his guys collected, one of the things that you've seen before is the town is broken out into 5 zones. That works for us from a work standpoint. That works from us from an operational logistics standpoint. There's 5 days a week. There's 5 zones. We can target and work in certain areas, certain days of the week, and know when we're complete. So we only have to just very, minorly check on things as the week progresses. We're going to start with what's known as Zone 10, Zone 20, and Zone 50. Zone 10 is basically everything from the old fish hatchery townhouses going out to the city limit sign. That is your Iredell, Westover, Robin Lane, Kimberly Drive, everything basically coming in on Business 17 into that first landmark we have of Pembroke Creek. Zone 20, it encompasses everything from that same bridge coming closer to town up into Kellogg's, where Filbert's Creek Bridge is at. It also includes Queen Anne, Miles Brown, Albania, as well as Twitty, Boswell, Cawthon, as well as MLK and any additional smaller secondary roads that are tied into that. That's what's Zone 20. Zone 50, this is everything going out of town. This is everything from Coke Avenue headed either north on 17 towards our industrial park. This includes Coke Avenue, Oakdale, Tyler Lane, Paxton, Old Hertford, as well as Colonial Village and Village Creek. So why is that important? Because what we're going to recommend moving forward is the infrastructure to go ahead and really stretch our wings so we know we've got the entire town covered. So when we get to the second part of this project and we start working in zones 40 and zones 30, that the infrastructure is already set up in place. You can go to the next slide. So to get an idea of Zone 10 and what David and his guys do, this is a screenshot just of the area as you go past Pembroke Creek Bridge and you exit town on 17 South Business. There's roughly 316 meters. These are mainly residential meters. This is everything from the town limit sign in. You say, well, this is nice. We literally can street view these. You can click on that. It tells you the account information. It tells you the meter number. It tells you the make. It tells you the size. That's the type of behind the scenes data that David and his guys really worked with us. And we pulled the GIS location, the billing location, as well as the meter reading data. All that's now intertwined. Although each system's separate, this is where it's all housed together. So, you know, in 5 years when someone retires from our department, there's no longer, well, where's 212 Robin Lane's water meter at? Anybody, we can interchange employees, they can physically see these on a map, dive down even deeper, and they know that's the meter for that house. These are also tied to what is our customer file, which I didn't show you here. That is the structure points that EMS and fire uses, and that's the parent versus the child. And that's how those two talk, and both have unique pieces of data that they share. But this is Zone 10. This is one of the areas that we would start. You can go to the next slide. Zone 20, this is that same footprint that we've seen from the original work zone map. This shows your Queen Anne Loop, Miles Brown, Albania, Cawthon, Boswell, Twitty, and MLK, and then all the additional secondary roads. These are all those meters as well. There's roughly 237 meters there. These are mainly residential meters. There are a few larger meters there, just some, and when I say larger, that's relative, 1 inch or 2 inch for some of the mobile home parks, or either for some of the apartment complexes that are in that area. But nothing like what we're getting ready to talk about. If you go to the next slide. This is Zone 50. This is bird's eye view. They're roughly 236 meters from everything from Coke Avenue going out of town, either on Church Street or either on Broad Street. Inside these 236 meters, the reason we felt like it was important to include this, these will be your more expensive meters because it includes the industrial park. We've been working with the industrial park as things have been improved in those areas to try to help minimize some of this cost and kind of plan for these meters to be changed out and converted to these automatic read meters. There's 62 of those total. That houses everything for our industrial park. There are multiple meters at multiple locations, or multiple meters at single locations. And this will go ahead and take care of all of our commercial as well as our industrial sites. And the difference of those 236 are Paxton, Old Hertford, Oakdale, Tyler Lane, Coke Avenue, Village Creek, and Colonial Village. But we know where all of those are, what structure's there too, and what the customer information is. And you can go to the next slide. So it would be wonderful if we could just call the vendor, say, hey, we're ready. Let's go ahead and order these meters. We're gonna go ahead and just change them all out. That does not happen that way. So what this shows, the items in green are those work zones, zone 10, zone 20, and zone 50 that we just went through their individual maps, and these are the total counts of what's there. And those numbers that are below that, the 51, the 52, 20, 30, 51, 11, 41, 51, those numbers are our billing cycles. The way this thing works, the billing software works is these things have to be taken out in a batch. They have to be replaced in its entirety at one time. So this is why we specifically pick these zones as well as the condition assessment is these are our simpler billing cycles. These are the ones that we can easily get through quickly, that the condition of the meters they're approaching that end use. And this just shows how we would start with different billing cycles and routes and start. As a whole, we're looking at roughly $400,000 for the first phase, and I know that's a lot, but be mindful in that initial $100,000 is just for the infrastructure that's going to be put in place that will not be included as we get to the second portion of this project in upcoming years. It's something that will already be there, and the reason that we really picked that particular brand that we enjoy is that the hardware is a one-time purchase for us as well as the software, but what is nice is that the software constantly updates. So if we have something new, something built into these, to the brain of these, this base station, that will always update. That is something that will constantly improve. There will be no more infrastructure improvements that we have to make. We would simply just replace meters later. And then roughly $300,000 for the meters and the associated hardware for their installation. David touched based on lids being broken, metal lids versus plastic lids, the boxes either being in good, fair, or poor shape, the meter itself being in good, fair, or poor shape. And some of these meter boxes probably have never been changed. When meters haven't. So there's just some older style boxes and actual structures that these meters are housed in that we also have to replace. If you notice, we talked about 800 meters versus the 789 that are here. There are meters out there within these zones that do not have active accounts. So we might have located 850 meters, but there may be some that don't have an active account there now. So these are active, occupied homes that we know that someone's there. We still have locations for meters that are unoccupied or vacant lots that could be improved on. Why is that important? As homes are being renovated, we oftentimes get in contacted by contractors. They come in and want to know, well, hey, where's the meter location for such and such house? And I mean, it's been vacant for X number of years. And we're not quite sure, but we know where those are now. So that's huge. You go to the next slide. What's the customer going to see? Everyone in those zones will have a customer portal. Why is this important? This will give the residents the ability to look at hourly use and its intensity. There will be built-in to these meters where we will be able to notify customers if there's a leak. We can give those residents or businesses a call and say, hey, you've got a leak on your side. You typically use 2.5 gallons a minute within an hour. And you know, something's changed. You're up to 15 gallons a minute through that meter. You need to get a plumber in to see what's going on. We're going to come cut the meter off for you if you'd like us to. So we'll have those notifications. They'll also have those notifications. This is an image of what it looks like from a desktop. There's also an app that the customers in those zones will be able to have. They'll be able to set up those notifications for themselves. Hey, it looks like you have a water leak. Hey, you've got a chime on your phone. I need to go check and see. I'm away. Let me call Public Works and see if they'll cut the water off till I get there. So there's lots and lots of creature comforts that are built in to this platform. And this isn't a one-time thing. The same thing here. If something changes in that base station, it's updated, no issue. Something changes in here, new features are put in. Edenton's our customer. These guys are with us for the long haul. They're not here just to make one quick sale and get out of here. This is going to be an ongoing working relationship from a meter perspective, just like we have now with our billing and our current meter reading software that we use for our direct reads. You can go to the next slide, Tammy. Questions? Yes, sir, Reverend Cole.
Good. What bothers me is how are these new meters gonna be installed? Most of the line there is cast iron. And they've been down so many years that, what about the problem when you go disconnect the line, they're gonna break?
And that's something
That's
that,
a problem, that's gonna be a high cost, isn't it?
and that's the main reason we identified the areas that we did, in addition to the simplicity of the install for us to be able to do this, is also that we've been in those areas enough to know what we commonly see from the main to actually to the meter. You know, you say, well, what type of, you know, additional hardware was included in that $300,000 that you referenced? There's certain material that we have already identified with our current vendors to be able to make quick repairs on PVC, poly, galvanized, copper lines that you typically don't have. So when we get to that point, we will have already had the inventory in stock to go grab what we need, they will be on the service trucks with the guys when they're doing this to make those repairs, because we are aware that there may be some leaks on our side, there may be some leaks on the customer side, but from our standpoint, we're there to make the repairs and to make the install at that time. We would notify the homeowner of what's going on, but we're not simply coming in, grabbing that meter and pulling it out. These guys understand that if something's going on, something's not fixed right, you don't leave. So we're going to be broken up into smaller groups, multiple groups all across town that are doing these. We'll have 2-man teams. So if you only get 1 meter that day because of a leak or repair, that's the nature of the beast. The other 4 crews got 20 apiece, or 10, or whatever that number may be. And it's going to be a case-by-case basis, but we are, and Virginia can vouch for this, we're purchasing inventory as we're working through this now to try to build stock to get in front of this.
Okay.
What is your timeline from once you start to you think that you will be completed with it?
Well, if this is approved to go forward, what we would like to do is start in late September, mid to late September, when things have started to slow down, because this is going to be an entire department approach. The biggest driving factor that we're going to have is when we talk about pulling these meters out in batches to align with our billing. We'll have a small window each month where we're not currently reading, that if we get to that date and we don't have enough time to start another cycle of changing out, we'll have to wait, because these are kind of an all or nothing as we go through these things. We would like to shoot for 6 months, but that's from September. The biggest issue we're running into now with a lot of our vendors is the supply. We can start the process, we can get things going, but things are really slow to come in. And so that could be delayed, but we would like to have this portion of the project at its latest finished by June 30th of this fiscal year. That's the goal.
I know your department stays pretty busy as it is. Are you gonna be able to do it with your current staff, or are you gonna have to hire additional staff to do this, or?
We plan to do it with 10 guys, two people to a team. We're gonna have 5 teams that are gonna do this. At first, we're gonna start with the smaller count cycles. So if a particular area only has 28 meters that need to be changed out, that's where we're gonna start till we get this thing really ironed out and we get a really good knowledge of how we can do these things efficiently.
But we're not gonna
No.
contract to have additional personnel. One thing that we looked at early on was there are companies out there that will do kind of a turnkey job for you. And when Corey started digging deep, he realized quickly that a lot of the costs were the labor costs
Yeah.
for the contractors. And so that's when he came back with the proposal. It may take us longer, but it will be less expensive. But we also think the real key is it's going to be much more in line with what our standards are, and our guys are going to be under Corey's leadership trained and able to do the installs.
And we've been cross-training employees for the last year coming up to this point. We've got guys that have the certifications and have got the skills that we can really interchange from water and sewer, or from water treatment, or from wastewater treatment, even from landscaping, that we've trained up that have the skills to do this. And we're going to pair up these guys with 5 of our senior guys who know exactly how to handle it, some of our younger guys to continue to try to train these guys up. And I think we've handpicked 10 guys that really can make this thing happen for us.
It sounds like you've done your homework. You know what you're doing. You know what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
just a question. Do you know of any life-size municipalities that have gone through this process in the last year or so?
We do know of other municipal systems that are out there that have done this, and most of these are either larger systems, larger populations. I can get back with you about someone comparable to us. I know that I think the most closely related one that we have is in Greenville, South Carolina, that is almost an apples to apples comparison for what we have here. Travel restrictions, we haven't been down there to actually talk with them about it, but we did make some in-state visits to other systems to at least get an idea there. And after seeing what these guys are doing and how this plays out, this is definitely something that even Edenton can have and install themselves.
Corey, what is the notification and the installation process if you have a residential customer who wants and needs a standard residential meter and also a landscape or irrigation meter?
So one of the things we've already requested from the vendor, because we know there are some concerns about those that we've been working through, we are going to, with you guys' approval, we would like to also work on obtaining those as our assets. And the reason being is we've already spoken with the vendor specifically for this project, and we will be able to get a standard residential meter and then a second different colored landscaping meter. And I think that there are some places out there that there's some kind of low-hanging fruit that we need to absorb.
Because there seemed to have been a lot of confusion about landscape meters lately. I don't know, I actually had some calls from people about landscaping meters. Did something change?
It did. We had we upgraded our billing system, and I think when the spring and summer months came, it was the first time that the landscape meters were, or the landscaping systems were being utilized. But I think we've worked through, was it a software problem?
There's a calculation issue that was there that we've worked with the folks from Logic on.
So the next step, if the committee is willing, we would like to solicit proposals from banks for the financing of the $400,000. Honestly, Virginia is a little bit concerned about the bank's willingness to loan money on, 700 individual assets, but we're gonna give it a shot and hopefully secure good financing, and then we'll come back to you with the cost benefit analysis. But we do think there's, we've got to start replacing the old meters, and we think it's a smart move to go to smart meter reading, and our customers will benefit from it. They'll be able to not only, look and see about leaks, but they're going to be able to better manage their consumption. They're going to be able to see, wow, if I make this change, I can lower my consumption.
Mayor, I just want to say, Public Works Committee, full agreement to direct the staff to arrive at some cost proposals and share with full council at the August 10th meeting. Thank you, Corey.
You're welcome.
Good job, Corey.
Good job.
You've done your homework.
It's been a long project going both ways. Luckily, we've had a lot of good help from David and his team, as well as Virginia and Jessica at Town Hall to integrate this. Thank you.
Thank you.
David, thank you for staying with us through all this.
Well, thank you for your time.
Mayor, third on our list of discussions is the Mayor's Task Force on Litter Prevention, Recycling, and Environment. Mayor, at this time, the town has received 5 applications, individuals to serve in the task force. This includes, in addition to that, is Larry McLaughlin, a county commissioner, who serves as liaison from the county. Public Works Committee agrees and actually recommends that our sheriff Bassanite, and our police chief, Chief King, and a representative from North Carolina Department of Transportation serve as ex officio members to this task force. The Public Works Committee is in full agreement to offer our staff to set up time for council to meet with and interview applicants, and hopefully this can be done in a reasonable time frame. And I think we can interview these applicants similar to the way we interview regular board members right here in this particular room. I think with 5, I think we can handle it.
I've got a question. What is the proposed number of people on that committee?
Councilman Coleman, do you have a number on that?
I can't remember if I put a number on it or not.
And I wanted to add that Tammy reminded me that we had 2 other applications that she was holding. So we have seven applications, which I think that is, unless you have a different number, that seems like a good
And
working, manageable.
And that leads me to my next question. Historically, for me and Councilman Coleman, if you think that, for example, hypothetically, 7 is a good number for the committee, and you have 7 applicants, do we still interview those applicants, or do you move forward with those being your committee, or is it still wise to go through the interview process?
In the past, the council has always wanted to put eyes on
Okay.
and talk to people about, why do you want to be on this committee? What is
Okay.
your motivation? Yeah.
all right, that's a good thing to continue.
And just to remind me, these people are gonna make recommendations to us about how we can improve the environment, recycling, and so forth. Okay.
Yes.
And is there going to be a heavy emphasis on our exit ramps in town?
I hope so. We talk about litter.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I continue to get a lot of complaints about that, and
You know, I do too, but lately I've noticed some of them.
it
look
seems
a
to
little
be better,
It's
but
a
it's
little
still,
better.
yeah, I think there's been some improvement for whatever reason.
Okay, Mayor, last on the list is, a review animal control and protective services agreement. This year's budget, includes funding to contract with the county for an increased, level of, animal control and protective services. The town's funding has made it possible for the county to, move a, part-time animal control position to a full-time position. Over the years, there's been an increased need for more, animal control enforcement efforts within the city limits. The county manager has just recently shared with our town manager a model town-county animal control agreement. The town would like to include language within the agreement that would give the county full authority to enforce the town's animal control ordinance. Mayor, the Public Works Committee is in full agreement to authorize the town staff to prepare the new animal control agreement and amendments to the ordinance and have this document ready for presentation to the council at our August 10th meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
In the community, we've got a dog that's been there for 5 years. And this dog run wild, and every spring she comes back with a suitor, and she drops it over the litter. And she goes into the trash can at Towers Run. She brings out trash. She puts it on the churchyard. She spreads it through all the yards in town, in the community. And we've called animal control time and time again, but we can't get any help.
I think with a full-time person, hopefully this will improve somewhat.
Yes, and I'm sorry that happened, but there has been, some confusion over what the county's not confusion, I mean, their expectation of enforcement of animal control inside the city limits has always been what it is outside of the city limits. And we've gone back and forth, and they've told me, if you want a higher level of service, if you want us to respond, they'll respond if there's a call for a dangerous animal, but what you're talking about, is one of the reasons why I kind of said, okay, I give up. I'm going to recommend that the council fund a higher level of service.
Okay.
But I'll follow up with you to get more specifics so that we can address that.
Okay.
And I've noticed too, a larger population of feral cats around town. Hopefully keep them.
Are they still behind the duck road? You still,
They're all over Church Street.
Yeah, they are.
well, you know what I was
Well,
Mayor?
I have to say that the county animal control officer has been a big help with us when we've had to do enforcement on Church Street with the cats. But I think this program is going to be a big help to improving the quality of life in some of our neighborhoods where we haven't had the ability to address some of the problems with dogs
And this night, I took note with pleasure that County Commissioner Larry McLaughlin wants to sit on our litter prevention, recycling, and environmental committee. And moving forward, and it's tied into what we just talked about, I would like for us to look for opportunities that we can cooperate more with the county, and it'd be a two-way street. Hopefully encourage their cooperation with us on matters of mutual interest. I feel like the litter is one, the dog and animal ordinance is another, and just continue to look for opportunities that we can come together. I continue to be concerned about the height of the grass during the summertime at our courthouse. I'm speaking of the newest courthouse, not the old historic courthouse, but to a lot of people, that's a central part of town. And from what I understand, they only mow it once every 2 weeks, regardless of the month of the year. And somehow, I don't know if it could tie in with any of this. I'd like to see if we could talk to them about that, and maybe mow it once in December and February, and maybe once a week in July, all that.
Or maybe help out with their paving budget, because
Yeah.
that parking lot and driveway is horrible.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Well, my point is, I would like for us moving forward, the next 12 to 18 months or so, look for opportunities where we can work together. And I thank Commissioner McLaughlin for joining our task force.
And I have to say, the parking lot issue, that's there was a drainage problem there, and so that's on us, the parking of that big patch. So,
And we've been working with the county, as far, there's some replacement with the IT director. We're trying to coordinate at the same time as far as the repair there. But we did identify it as a town stormwater line that was there that needed to be replaced.
And also, Ms. Knight, I know we don't have items considered timely and important on this agenda. What is the situation? There is a pothole, there's something just north of Hicks Street on Granville Street, and is that our obligation or the state's obligation? I get a lot of complaints about that as you're traveling towards the light there at the medical center. You know what I'm talking about, just north
I
of
do,
Hicks Street.
and, we have finally made it through into our new budget year. We've got everything together. The paving crew actually started on 4 different places that we've got some repair work to do. Their equipment's staged. That's one of the places that we're going to have them take care of while they're here, as well as the one that was brought up for Morris Circle at the entrance. We're going to have that apron fixed. And what we've run into is that some of these cuts are a little bit larger than what we can actually get asphalt in for, like quantities. So that's one of the places we're going to have them take care of as well.
the contractor's scheduled to do that work.
And the contractor, they mobilized and started work today.
Today.
So if
Great.
you've been down
Yeah.
Water Street,
Awesome.
we had them start there with some tear out work. So we'll see some asphalt going in place tomorrow.
Great, we appreciate it.
Mayor, that's all we have. Public Works.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I raise one more question and go back, since we don't have the other items on the agenda. Oh, Craig, on your litter control, Mayor Specials and litter control, did we talk about the possibility of maybe doing what we did with the Human Relations Commission and having the town council meet and have people make a presentation on why they want to be on the commission and do that as a group, like we did with the Human Relations Commission, rather than individually? Any preference on that?
I thought we were gonna have them here within the room speak individually about why they wanna be on that task force. Is that what you're saying, Roger? I think,
Yeah, we offer that as an option. You know, it's a new task force. You
Yeah.
could do that. I think that may work well with the young folks committee, instead of you having to interview 12 people. Maybe set up a time, but it's a council decision. What your preference is.
like a group interview, coaches here.
Well, what we did, I think, with the Human Relations Council, and because I think the importance of the issues they were discussing, we went into a little more depth, but it could be something as simple as, like with the Young Folks Committee, coming in and standing up and introducing yourself, and you have 3 or 4 minutes to say, this is why I want to be on this committee, and it would save us the formal interview process. Is that kind of what you're throwing out there, Ms. Knight? Or maybe
I
not?
think we just need to get a consensus of the council, how we wanna do that, but that
Isn't that
sounds
sort of
like.
what we do anyway?
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's it.
just keep it simple. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and Councilman High, thank you very much for I think what you're saying is right on. We do need to work more with the county and the town together, and thank you for suggesting that. And, at this time, we'll move the, committees to the administrative committee, and that is chaired by Councilman High.
Thank you, as always, Mayor Stallings. We've got 5 items that we need to bring before you tonight. The first item is the issue of the athletic accomplishment signs. We've been talking about this now for several months, but at the town limits, we have discussed with West Matera at the high school signage that would honor championship high school teams in the county, and also to erect signs involving professional athletes who've made it to various professional leagues. What Ms. Knighton and I would recommend on that, Wes Matera was unable to meet with us tonight. We know there's a desire on his part and also our part to move forward with this particular project. And so what Ms. Knighton and I would suggest is that you allow the two of us to meet with him directly between now and the August meeting, and to give you a report at the August meeting. And if everybody's all right, we feel like that would be the quickest way to continue moving this thing forward. Is that correct, Ms. Knight?
Yes, and he sent his regrets and apologies. He just has so many night meetings, and he's...
And we feel like if we just look at more meeting times other than at night, we'll probably be able to have a better chance of having a sit-down meeting with him, and we'll do all we can to get
I
back.
think that's an excellent idea.
Okay, sounds good. The next item for discussion is lighting opportunities at Colonial Park. Craig Miller and I met with Reverend Tatum, who's one of our devoted downtown ambassadors, last week to discuss his recommendations for increased lighting on this end of downtown, and in particular the park right behind us. And he had made several recommendations, and Councilman Miller and I felt like they were good recommendations. But one, we have a lot of groups, including ourselves, that meet here in this building and in this room, and it's very, very dark at night as it relates to coming out of the south side of this building and venturing into our parking lot here that also serves not only this building but also the park. And so he had recommended some sort of lighting. He had originally recommended lighting that was attached to the building that would just illuminate the park a little bit, the parking lot a little bit. And I think Anne Marie has consulted with Mike Nichols, and he's recommending a pole light that would light this up a little bit. Also at the southeast corner of the park, just right here, there is a pole that has two lights on it. One shines down on the actual playground area, another shines towards the boat docks. That light had been out for a while, and Reverend Tatum had recommended that we replace that with a working light, which I think that has already been done. And Chairman Miller reported that made a big difference. Then as you walk west along the southern line of the playground, it's really, really dark on that southwest corner of the playground, and Reverend Tatum recommended at least one light to be placed there to increase lighting. And the thought process behind all of this, one is a feeling of security and safety for visitors and town folks alike to visit the park after the sun's gone down. And he emphasized to us that the park is open till 11 o'clock, and he would like to see more of our citizens enjoy it. But he's got a lot of comments from citizens and visitors that because it's so dark, they don't feel like visiting it at certain times of the night. There was also a recommendation of some sort of decorative lighting in the water oak trees that are just out here to the east of the building that sit right at the foot of Broad Street, and it's in between the parking lot behind us and the Barker House parking lot. Those trees have been on our radar for a while now. They look healthy to the untrained eye, but there are a lot of problems with them, and we're not so sure how long those trees are going to be with us. There's some maintenance issues with the decorative lighting, and there's also some concerns that the decorative lighting with weakened trees that aren't healthy can cause further deterioration of the trees. So the recommendation now is to hold off on any decorative lighting that would be up in the trees, but to look at what they call uplighting, where there's lighting on the ground and shoots up into the trees. And the thought process behind the original recommendation for decorative lighting there was twofold. Again, safety and security concerns to attract more people to the park after sundown, and also it would give the appearance of a very lively, fun town. But right now, we're going to have to put that on hold. Is that right, Ms. Knight, and perhaps look at the uplighting
Yes,
instead?
and we'd like to get the arborist who came in back in 2017 to assess the live oaks, and then at the same time speak with, maybe get a couple proposals from landscape architects about lighting, decorative that achieves the goals.
I think that's a great idea, because I think, you know, if you go places and you have a lot of really cool uplighting, it really makes a place, it's not as stark and sort of institutional as having something that just shines down.
Right, exactly, I agree, and it's interesting, Mayor Staley's the next item, and we'll segue into that, is the Young Folks Committee, and a lot of the young people that I've been talking to, they really like when they see the uplighting and the word decorative lighting and stuff, and it makes them feel like they live in a younger town and a funner town when they see that. So at this point in time, we would just recommend that we move that forward with Ms. Knight and others, checking with the arborist, checking and see what kind of proposals we can get.
Just
on
add
all
one
that.
thing.
Yes, you can.
We also discussed adding some decorative lighting around the pier, boat slips, which would brighten that up a lot and give it a lot of pizzazz out there, and I think that's something we can look at in the future too. That would really enhance the whole area out there.
Yeah.
All right, maybe that's as far as that item. The next item is the Young Folks Committee, and you will recall that the beginning of 2020, we put forth the formation of a Young Folks Committee as something we thought would be a good idea to get the input of our younger folks in town on initiatives that would improve their quality of life, those people that are here, but also make it more attractive to the other young people who might be thinking about moving here. As with many things, COVID-19 put a hold on that, and also we had assigned Saoirse Scott to help us with that, and she was very, very excited and very, very enthusiastic about that initiative, and of course she's no longer with us, so it's a double whammy between COVID and Saoirse leaving us. We've gotten a lot of inquiries about the status of that, and now we think it's a proper time maybe to move forward with that. We had 14 applications. One of those applicants has moved out of town, so we still have 13 active applicants, and I believe the best idea would be the one that Ms. Knighton suggested a few minutes ago with the task force on litter, and that would be to maybe have some sort of meeting where those folks could introduce themselves and tell us why they want to be on this committee, and then move forward from there. So I would make that a recommendation that we start planning that. Also, Anne Marie and I discussed the need to have a staff person other than our outgoing manager and other than our incoming manager to be kind of the staff liaison for that. And what I would recommend on that is that Ms. Knight and I get together between now and the August meeting and kind of put our heads together and decide what that staff person, who that staff person might be and what they might look like. Because I do think we're going to need a staff person to help coordinate it all. But I'm excited to get that initiative up and running. It's one of the things that I wanted for us to do once I came on council, and I know a lot of the young people out there are excited.
And remind me what young is.
Young is under 40. We wanted to include a young at heart provision there, but it's so I think most of us at this table are probably excluded, but it's 40.
Councilman, I think they're excited to get it started as well.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of comments, and I just got one, what was it, Friday night, somebody asked me about it. And what I'd like to do, I am not sure if he's one of the active applicants, and so I'll reach out and get his contact information, because the person who's mentioned it to me Friday night, I think it was maybe the third time he's mentioned it to me, so he's definitely interested. So, no action on that, so we'll just, move, Ms. Knight and I will move forward with, trying to get that organized and up and running. The fourth item, Mayor Stallings, is the approval of classification of positions, and I'm gonna give my best summary of this, and then I'm gonna hand it over to, Ms. Knight and Virginia Smith. One of the things that the state auditor looks at every year in our, annual audit is what they call segregation of duties. And in short summary, what that means is the state auditor's office does not like one person having too many functions over our finances, and they like to have a checks and balances system in place where more than one person is handling certain parts of our finances. Right now, Debbie Whitehurst holds a position that is responsible for two very critical functions. One is accounts payable, and other is the utility customer service agent. And as I understand, the auditor would like for those functions to be separated and would feel better in terms of a segregation of duties and just a best practice that those were segregated. So from staff, we're getting a recommendation that we create a new assistant finance officer position and a new customer service accounting technician position. Now, would those be two separate positions or just one person manning both of those positions?
No, we would have a new assistant finance officer position, and then Debbie's position is going to be restructured and would be assigned a lot of the duties. Well, both positions would be assigned a lot of the duties that Virginia is responsible for handling. Is that the right way to say it? And to, you gave a good summary today when we were talking. Can you say about, collections and?
Currently, Debbie does the collections up front. She also prepares the end of the month collection report that she gives to me. So I'm responsible to take what's collected each day. I do the deposit. I take the deposit to the bank, and then I reconcile the bank statement at the end of the month. And then I also reconcile her end of the month report to the bank statement. So I'm pretty much the only one other than Anne Marie that reviews the cash in on a daily basis, and the auditor would definitely like to split that up. Going forward, the new person that is in the collection department would be collecting money along with Ophelia. They would give it to Debbie. She would continue to do the end of the month report, but she would do the deposit each day. And then at the end of the month, I can reconcile her work against the end of the month report to the daily deposits to the bank statement to make sure that they all match.
Would this change grade level at all? Making these changes? Would this remain the same grade level?
Well, Tammy can speak to that.
We recommended a grade level 13 for the collections clerk, and I think it was an 18 for the finance director.
So
And I
this
just
is
wanted,
it, well, this is one new hire. is that
One
what-
new
yeah,
hire.
okay.
and I just wanted to clarify, it wasn't the state auditor that recommended this. This recommendation comes, or the finding in your annual financial audit for the last 100 years has been, we have a weakness because we have lack of segregation of duties.
That's our local
That's our-
auditor that
that's
we
our
hire
local auditor.
each year.
Yes.
It's our
And so
annual audit.
that's
Okay.
right, yeah.
And-
Aren't there 3 people that works up front?
Debbie is really a part-time collection clerk up front, yes, and also does accounts payable. Ophelia is a collections person, and then Jessica is she does the billing, but she also will fill in and do collections, so.
And if I might interject, Jessica is getting ready to go out on maternity leave. And one of the things that we have realized is that there is a very serious lack of training amongst each of the different
Cross-training.
cross training. So we're actually having to call on Darlene to retire from that position to come back and help us. So in this way, in hiring another collections agent, she can cross-train to actually help in accounts payable. She can help Ophelia with the cemetery when she's out, and then she can also step in to help with Jessica and the billing part of the process if needed.
So at this point in time, we would be moving forward to full council, 2 new job descriptions, is that correct? And also 1 additional full-time customer service position. Is that correct?
We're creating 2 new job descriptions,
Okay.
yes. and
But only adding one
Only
head.
We're
adding
adding one head
Adding
count, yes.
one new
Head
individual.
count.
Yes. We need to hire one.
So what we would do is recommend that at our full council meeting in August, that we approve the 2 new job descriptions and the new full-time position. Do we need anything else? Sound good? Okay, great. Mayor, the last item is extension of our COVID-19 paid sick leave policy, and Tammy Woodley has recommended that we consider extending the COVID-19 paid sick leave policy. The federal government did not extend their policy when it expired on December 31st of 2020. We did extend the policy for 6 months beginning January 1st of this year, and that has now expired, and we need to consider whether we want to extend it for another period of time of 6 months until December 31st of 2021. The thought from staff is the feds have not adopted a new policy, but locally we are still seeing ongoing and active COVID-19 cases within our community, and that is why they make that recommendation. And Tammy, if you could give us a real quick summary of what the COVID-19 paid sick leave policy says, and if you need to add anything more as to why staff is making this recommendation, please feel free to do so.
The policy helps employees with 80 hours of paid leave by the town so that they don't have to use any of their paid sick leave or vacation leave. And it's a one-time paid leave. They can't give it again after they use it.
And it's tied directly to missing work due to COVID.
Yes, they have to show proof that they've had COVID or they're caring for a family member. There's a form that they have to complete and bring something from their doctor showing.
Is there any discussion about that, any major heartburn about that from anyone?
Good idea.
Everybody good? Okay, we would move that forward to full council, Mayor, with the recommendation that we extend it for another 6 months until December 31st of 2021. And with that recommendation, Mayor Stallings, that completes the administrative committee report.
Thank you, Councilman Hyde. And our next committee is the Finance Committee, and that's chaired by Carolyn Dixon.
So we've got one thing on, we've got, we had a presentation about the fire truck, and in order to get the money for a fire truck, we have to go before the LGC. In order to do that, we have to have proposals for funding. The county, I believe, is responsible for 47% of this fire truck of the cost, and we'll be responsible for the other, and I can switch screens real quick. Virginia asked 2 banks, or actually asked 3 banks to give us a proposal. We didn't get a response from Southern or from Atlantic Union. We got one from BB&T. There's a 20-year term with 2.26 interest rate. And then we got one from PNC that was for 15 years with a 2.99% interest rate. It's sort of interesting, the BB&T, normally I personally like to go with the lowest number of years to pay back, but the difference in the interest rate between the BB&T loan and the PNC loan makes it so that even paying over 20 years, you pay less interest with the BB&T loan than you do with the PNC loan. So
So Kevin Howard had a good idea. He said, Because a lot of times the banks give a provision that you can have a prepayment.
Yeah, yeah.
You can pay it off before it's due. And could we structure it with the 15-year, but still have the lower interest rate? So Virginia's checking with,
You mean the 20-year? Because it looks like
take
to
the
me.
20-year interest
Yeah,
rate,
yeah.
but pay it off
In-
over 15
right,
years.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll get back to you on that.
So I guess we'll have a proposal, but I mean, they both look great.
They did, yeah.
So,
Fire
Well-
chief's happy.
What year is that, fire truck?
It'll be a 20, if it, depends on when it goes in, it's gonna take about 13 to 14 months to have it built. So we probably will be falling to the 2022 model or 2023, depending on when it's built.
spending a lot of money tonight.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that, we'll send that on and you'll have those proposals for us and we can make a final decision in our meeting. So that's it for the finance committee.
Okay, and that completes our agenda for tonight, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any objection? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Did anybody